Hello everyone, rudyxx here for a special bonus game for the MMO Quest series, Final Fantasy XI. I've actually got a few hours on Final Fantasy XI, and I've managed to reach level cap a few times in the game, so I had no desire to start up a brand new character as part of the MMO Quest series. Considering my knowledge of the game, it actually wouldn't take me long to take a fresh character to max level, but I wanted to share the experience with anyone that might be curious about it anyways. Now, let me start off by saying I've been playing the game since before the original North American launch back in 2003. I've seen every aspect of leveling the game has ever had during its lifespan, and it's been quite an adventure for sure. Over the years, the game has seen quite a number of quality of life changes that have definitely made the game a very different experience from its original release. Even returning players would actually be incredibly confused trying to start off, as even in the past 2 or 3 years, things have changed enough that it's almost an entirely different process. For this episode of MMO Quest, I'm going to assume that you, the viewer, have no experience with Final Fantasy XI whatsoever. And while I have a ton of experience with the game, and my love for it is incredibly great, I also know its flaws incredibly well. Starting the game off, there's actually not really a whole lot of direction on where to go and what to do. The opening cutscene is somewhat ambiguous on where to go and how the maps even work. You have to sort through a lot of menus to figure out where the quests even are, and in most cases they aren't actually very helpful. If you wander outside of town, you're going to probably die pretty quickly, as none of the enemies have any indication as to what level they are. Even some of the more harmless-looking enemies can ruin a new player's experience pretty quickly, as moving more than 100 feet out of town puts you up against enemies that are harder than really necessary, and at level 1 or 2, you really don't have a lot of options for survivability. Thankfully, the game has added a system in place to help out players going through a tough time. Although sadly it does a poor job of even letting you know how to even access it, it is in fact there. At level 5 you gain access to the Trust system that basically lets you summon NPCs that can serve a specific party role such as tank or healer, and while they are incredibly useful, the game still doesn't really point you in a direction as to where to go to level up. To be completely honest, the game is incredibly outdated. The game still somewhat relies on trial and error to figure things out. Eventually you're going to find yourself visiting one of the many Final Fantasy XI wikis out there, and even then a lot of those are somewhat difficult to navigate. There's a lot of content available in the game, but very few of those things actually reward you with experience points. There's a quest type system in place known as Records of Eminence that does reward you with experience points for accomplishing various tasks, but for the most part the game is going to essentially be a massive grind. Having said all that, just know that if you do stick it out and eventually take the time to figure things out per se, then know that Final Fantasy XI has one of the most rewarding stories of all time. I'm incredibly biased when it comes to how much I love the story for Final Fantasy XI. It's a grueling adventure to even get to the point where you can really actively go through the story, but it's very much well worth it. There are a lot of really amazing guides out there to help new players get along through to the point where they can actually start actively participating in basically anything, and it takes quite a lot of time to get to that point, but it's kind of like climbing up an incredibly tough hill, reaching the top, and then sliding down on one of the longest and most fun slides of all time. The game isn't necessarily difficult, but it definitely requires a lot of mental fortitude and patience to get through it all. It is a bit dated, and one of the also more unfortunate things about the game is that because of its age, and because of the general flow of the game, it's become more of a single-player experience nowadays. The end game does really heavily rely on having a group for most things, but you can get through all of the story content as well as the leveling process solo. I've been playing this game for an incredibly long time, and I'm glad that I stuck through some of its more difficult times to reach the point I have with the game. It's been a wild journey that I would like to invite others to at least try out. Final Fantasy XI definitely has its flaws, but it's also a grand adventure in the long run. Most people that play the game are very friendly and willing to help new players out, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask pretty much anyone you pass by. because we all know just how difficult it is starting off, but it's definitely a great adventure if you stick it out. Thanks everyone for watching the video, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to follow along in my mini MMORPG shenanigans, then feel free to subscribe to my channel or follow my Twitch stream linked below the video. Take care everyone, and until next time, keep on gaming.